All right. I got to talk about this first chapter a little bit in Hyperion. Now, holy smokes. This is going to be spoilers, but at least if you're coming at this and you haven't read it, read the first 100 pages of this book. The first 50 pages might be a little dull, where you don't know if you're into it or not. I could see that certainly being the case. But I think around page 60, you will be at least interested in this very peculiar sort of thing that this priest runs upon or stumbles upon. I guess he's looking for it, but very, very, very compelling. I can't think of a first chapter that of a new series that has grabbed me quite the same way as this priest's tale. So it is not really this Hoyd. It's really the star of the show is this other guy. His tale, going out not really as a missionary per se, but going out to study and make contact with this Bakura tribe. And we think, why would he do something so? It's just a small little tribe, meaningless. Why not tackle one of these other big issues? He wants to see Christianity kind of flourish and survive, and he's out looking for this weird little tribe. And first, I gotta address some of the symbolism and thing. Not really, but some of the cool things, some of the cool features of this so far. With Hyperion itself, it is one of these 9 or so planets that they have found that have these tunnels within them. This tunnel burrowed, almost like it's been walked on for millions of years. These paths back and forth and around. Within the stone above, but also below. They can't find a way into these tunnels, I think, but they can sort of scan and see that it's this complex tunnel city sort of thing. And if you look at early Christianity, when they kind of there's a lot of these tunnel sort of cities and things in the Eastern Mediterranean that they would live in. And it's just very interesting. It's very interesting to see that sort of thing happening as well. And as you're going through this, before you make contact with them, you're sort of seeing some of the hints of where this is going. Now, he runs into this tribe, and they are described as sort of a mongoloid, almost severe Down syndrome sort of people. No children among them, and they are all around 40 to 50 years old, I think. And they are of the 70, right? It's this tribe where they maintain this 70, which 70 is also significant, but anyway. And they are very simple in some ways, even though when they look at this visitor, this preacher, they see him as being the simple one. It starts with this murder. I mean, that's around page 50 of this companion. And they are indifferent to it as not something with malice. It's just something that they were doing. He asks why they do that. It's like, well, so he wouldn't be alive. That's why. Obvious. And I can't remember what the other main question is, but he would have all these different questions and trying to connect with them and not really sure how they will respond to certain things. They just pee and poo with their robe on. They're always, it's very difficult for him to distinguish between male and female, and they don't really have a concept of when. So when he asks about when or something from the future, they're just kind of in this perpetual state of now, almost like they're on autopilot, like they have this algorithm sort of placed into them. And that's when you kind of see their pathway, that it looks like it's been worn down. I don't know how long they've been there, but it sounds like they're one of these earlier pilgrimages and stuff. Because anyway, wasn't sure if this was from a missionary coming in and like leaving an artifact and teaching them some things, and then that's just kind of become a very modified version of like a missionary's teaching or something like that. But it's very interesting to see this tribal take on it. And it's just with this exactness sort of thing. They have this forest, this forest on fire. They kind of describe it, and the cliff, and that he is not allowed to take part in this, even though he is of the cruciform, or I can't remember exactly what they. I'm going to have to read it again because it's very, very interesting, and there's a lot to take in. Eventually, he wants to go down, and he's having this faith crisis, and he goes down and he sees, he goes down, and we don't immediately see what he saw, but in his next journal entry, it's just really small, and he's thanking the Lord for what he has been able to see, almost like his faith has been renewed. And then he talks about what he saw. He goes back down, and they take him into this place, down this rocky stairway, which is very dangerous. And again, we have this labyrinth thing, which is like going down the depths of the labyrinth until you finally have this moment of enlightenment. Also very interesting that they're kind of numbered. He calls them by, they're alpha, then beta, then all the way. And it's just, anyway, they go back down. He goes down, and he sees this cathedral that is even more magnificent and elaborate than the ones that he had been accustomed to seeing. And he sees this cross there that's bejeweled, and when the light hits it a certain way or something, it's just magnificent, I guess. And he sees the shrike there. Sorry, I'm getting some of the things in order a little bit wrong, because at one point they see he's left his robe open a little bit, and that's a big deal. And anyway, he sees the shrike there and has this moment where he's kind of looked at, and it's over, not really moving much, but then it just like in a blink of an eye, it's just right in front of him, considering him, and then it vanishes. And he gets this cross sort of thing, almost like a leech, like burnt into his skin or something. And now that's just a part of him. And we find out that people with this thing on them, there's 70 of these things, I think, they die, and they immediately kind of go through that decomposition, but within like 30 seconds, and then this rebirth. And as they rebirth, they come back as a modified but slightly inferior version of what they were before. Now, you could take that certainly a number of ways. It certainly addresses. It can address blindly following. Like they don't really know what they're doing. They're just kind of worshiping this cruciform thing, and they really aren't understanding what they're doing. And in that regard, as they are kind of, living their whole life and dying and being reborn with this thing, it's actually taking a little bit away from them. So it is an interesting take on that. And now it's on him. Now he wants to go tell everybody about these objects and cathedral and stuff like that. But as he's trying to get away from this place, as he's trying to sort of sneak away, it starts to like burn on him and give immense pain, and he has to turn back. And eventually it ends with this thing where he wonders how much pain he would have to endure to either have this removed or yeah. And so he nails himself to these electric burning trees. I'll have to reread it again, but this is my immediate reaction. He nails himself to this tree and he's charred, and he's been going through for like 7 years of this death and rebirth, but charred, just being burnt alive. And that makes you obviously think of the early Christians in Rome being burnt alive and things like that. And he is going through this thing almost like this penitence to suffer as Christ suffered. And that was kind of a big part of a lot of these writings that come out of the first centuries of the early Christians. And he is found by Hoyt, the guy who's on this pilgrimage, and he it's like he releases this guy who's been burning and crucified to this tree, and now he can finally die, but now that cruciform is on him. Now, I didn't quite gather. Sometimes it takes me a couple pushes through, but we find that he has that one and he has maybe another one. It's like he has two of them. This whole Bakura tribe has been like nuclear blasted away, which makes you wonder, where are those crucifix leech things now? Yeah, very interesting. And this guy is even now suffering. So what a way to start this very interesting, highly regarded sci-fi. And at least for me, this is the sort of intrigue that really grabs me. I mean, yeah, what an interesting take on this kind of subject. Not really something I've seen before, but I'm so looking forward to the next perspective. I assume I'm going to get through that today, depending on how long it is. But it is. I can't believe it's taken me this long to finally get to this, and what an explosive, awesome first chapter. Really, a lot to think about too. I might even reread it again just to get that foundation really well done before I keep going. But very, very cool. Very cool. And I'm excited to read the next ones. And again, if you've just listened to this without reading it, go ahead and read the first 100 pages. I think you will find it interesting. I mean, it's not, sometimes people don't love sci-fi because it doesn't have necessarily all like the magic and the plot. People can find it a little flat, and I totally get that. And I wouldn't look down on anyone for just not really being into that sort of thing. But for me, it hits right on the sweet spot of the kind of stuff I like. I love the idea of one character doing journal entries, observing this group that is so peculiar and interesting, but yet familiar. Just so cool. So interesting. And I'll talk to you guys on the next one.